Welcome class. We are going to start the second class on digestive health. So today we are going to talk about the digestive system and the digestive process, common digestive issues and risk factors. Then we are going to talk about food sensitivity and food intolerance, and gut microbiota and the impact on health. And lastly, we will talk about how to restore digestive health. So this is our digestive system. The upper digestive tract includes mouth, pharynx, esophagus, and stomach. The lower digestive tract includes small intestine and large intestine. And we also have accessory organs that include salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. This is the pancreas. So a healthy gut is the foundation of our health. The functions of digestive system includes the injection, the intake of food, and mechanical digestion, that is to break up food particles and mix up food with digestive juices and expel food down the digestive tract. And chemical digestion is the digestion of food molecules by digestive enzymes. Secretion, that's the release of chemicals and enzymes for the digestion and absorption. So absorption is the uptake of the food molecules after being digested by the enzymes. So these are the nutrients. So take the nutrients from food into body circulation, and last excretion to eliminate the digestive waste. So the digestion process starts with the sight, smell, and taste of food. So when we see or smell of food, the digestive system start to secrete molecules for the digestion process. And in the mouth, we chew the food with teeth, and the tongue misses the food. Saliva dissolves and lubricates food. Then the food becomes food bolus. And the food bolus is swallowed down through a series of highly coordinated neuromuscular activities that's called swallowing reflex. It's an involuntary action. And that's to close the epiglottis so that the airway is covered, so that no food accidentally go down the airway. So the food bolus enter esophagus. So in order to go into the stomach, it needs to go through esophagus. That's the long tube here. So the tube at the upper end, that's the upper esophageal sphincter, and then the bottom where it connects the stomach, that's a lower esophageal sphincter. So those sphincters, they are actually made up by muscular rings. They work as valves. So like in a lower esophageal sphincter, so it's to stop food in the stomach flow into esophagus. The common health issues in the esophagus include esophagitis and esophageal cancer. So acute esophagitis can be caused by acid reflux. The acid stomach contents backflow into esophagus. When accidentally inject corrosive agent And it can also be caused by infection or radiation. And chronic esophagitis is the prolonged contact with irritants, like people have chronic acid reflux when they smoke or drink over a long period of time. And drinking hot, like food, it could be the drinks or the food that are very hot could also irritate the esophagus and can cause chronic esophagitis. And a Barrett esophagus is when people have prolonged acid reflux. And this is a major risk factor for esophageal cancer, especially for the lower part of esophagus, the acid reflux, because it's coming from the stomach into the esophagus. So this Barrett esophagus is a risk factor for the lower part of esophageal cancer. And that's mostly in white males. And it can also be caused by obese. But in Asian countries, most of the esophageal cancer is in the upper part of esophagus. And that's the risk factors are drinking, smoking, very hot drinks. The combination of alcohol, like there's the alcohol, 4 drinks a day, that's the risk of esophageal cancer. It's about sixfold. Smoking 2 packs a day, the relative risk of esophageal cancer is about 8-fold compared to people that non-smoking. But when people combine drinking and smoking, the risk it dramatically increased, up to 40 times higher than people that's non-drinking, non-smoking. So when food is moved down into the stomach, it stays in the stomach for 3 to 4 hours for initial breakdown. And in the stomach, the gastric gland releases hydrochloric acid. It's a very strong acid. It kills most bacteria, good or bad, and denatures food protein for further digestion, and helps in absorption of minerals, especially iron and B12. B12 is a vitamin B. The absorption of vitamin B12 requires an intrinsic factor that's secreted in the stomach. So in the stomach acid, it's very important for absorption of minerals and vitamin B12. And the high acid, the pH is very low, and the high acid also activates pepsin for enzymatic digestion of food protein. In stomach, the absorption is very limited, only some aspirin, alcohol, water, electrolytes. So the common health issues in the stomach, it's acid reflux, and it's on the rise. It's about 1 in 6 people will experience acid reflux symptoms at least once a week. So acid reflux is the acidic stomach content back will flow up into the esophagus through the lower esophageal sphincter. And when the acid reach the esophagus, it would cause the burning sensation. So we call it heartburn. The heartburn is nothing to do with the heart. It's the burning sensation. Like it's because it's close to like when we feel the heartburn, it feels that it's at the like in the heart area. But actually, it's in the lower esophagus. And GERD is a persistent acid reflux. When acid reflux occurs more than twice a week, it's considered a chronic health issue. It's called GERD. And GERD can eventually cause more serious health problems. And GERD affects people of all age. It can occur in infants or young children. But most children and only some adults, they have GERD, but without the heartburn symptom. So it's hard to diagnose. And then for the children, when they infants or children have GERD, usually they experience dry cough, or sometimes they have trouble swallowing, so they don't have good appetite to eat food. The acid reducing drugs, antacids, are prescribed for people with GERD. Antacids are used to neutralize stomach acid. So like the Tums, it is calcium. It would neutralize the hydrochloric acid, so reduce the acidic sensation when it's in the esophagus. And some of the prescribed antacids are actually to block the production of acid. So this, I think I'll show on TV a lot. It's the purple pill, it's a Nexium. So reduce the production of hydrochloric acid. But actually, as we age, the secretion of stomach acid decreases. We need stomach acid to help breakdown of food protein. So like in a very low, like in a low pH with high acid, the pepsin is activated to break down food protein into fragments. And if we have high pH, that's after the antacids, acid blockers, then the pH is raised. So the protein digestion is actually inhibited. So the food proteins cannot be fully digested. So taking acid blocking drugs over time can have many symptoms, like cause indigestion. The problem we initially have, the antacids actually over time worsen the indigestion problems. And it can also cause bloating, burning, and digestive infections because not enough acid to kill the bacteria and other pathogens coming with the food. Diarrhea and anemia, this could it's due to poor absorption of minerals like iron, and it can also caused by poor absorption of vitamin B12. Your vitamin B12 deficiency can also cause anemia. And osteoporosis, it's the like when we don't have enough calcium intake, and poor memory, food sensitivity, and autoimmune. So when people experience acid reflux, they need to take note of what they eat to avoid the food triggers. And these are the foods that need to be avoided, like peppermint, chocolate, and the high-fat foods like fried foods, mostly in the processed. A lot of this restaurant foods that are fried with oil, so very high fat. And alcohol, coffee, Alcohol, coffee, and pepper can also they may increase the gastric acid secretion. So for people experience acid reflux symptoms, they need to avoid these foods. And foods on the right-hand side, this is like they could be triggers, but not necessary. So it's each individual be different. It just could cause acid reflux symptoms in some individuals. So they just need to, like, when people experience acid reflux, they need to write down what they eat and then to pay attention to the symptoms. And so for each individual, they're different, but they need to go through that list to know which foods may be the triggers. Like some people, it could be just caffeinated drinks, and some people could be milk. Milk could be a trigger, and eggs, meat, even some vegetables and fruits. A common disorders in the stomach, as indigestion, and that's usually caused by low stomach acid. That's the discomfort after eating meals, and pain that's in the stomach, bloating, nausea, regurgitation, belching. Gastritis, that's the inflammation of the gastric lining, the mucosa. So there's the stomach. We can see that's the mucosal layer, and then the submucosal, and this is the layer of muscle. It's a smooth muscle. So for the gastritis, it could be in the mucosal, that's when it's superficial. But atopic gastritis usually already affect the submucosal layer. And when people have this ulcer, it's happening in the muscular layer. And eventually it could have perforation, and the whole lumen of stomach is damaged. So that's peptic ulcer. Stomach cancer. Peptic ulcer is a risk factor for stomach cancer. And we have a class just talking on cancer. So for the peptic ulcer, the causes could be H. pylori, a bacterial infection, or the side effects of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. H. pylori is the bacteria usually found in the stomach. The discovery of H. pylori as a cause for gastritis, it's awarded with Nobel Prize in 2005. So the infection of H. pylori can lead to the inflammation of the gastromucosal gastritis, and over time, it will lead to the bleeding ulcer, perforated ulcer. There are two types of peptic ulcer. One is in a duodenal. Duodenal usually more often in young people. It's the stomach pain on empty stomach. When there's no food, the people may experience pain when they are hungry. It's too much acid production. And in older people, it's more have this gastric ulcer. It's the pain after meal due to lack of gastric acid. So H. pylori infection may lead to duodenal ulcer and the gastritis that eventually lead to gastric cancer. But still, it's very low. Like even it's a risk factor, but the risk is low. It's only about 2%. And most like 90% of the individuals with H. pylori infection have no symptoms. So let's just say, okay, so that's the statements of to manage H. pylori infection. So it's a contagious disease, infectious disease. So when people experience indigestion, first they need to rule out H. pylori infection. But since more than 90% of people with H. pylori infection have no symptoms, so it's not necessary to have a screen and treat for everyone that are infected or in these high-risk communities. So it's because of the antibiotics drug resistance H. pylori. So to reduce the drug resistance bacteria, we don't want everyone to take antibiotics even if they have H. pylori infection. But I want you to take note, it's the use of aspirin and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs usually used as painkillers. They may increase the risk of ulcer in H. pylori infected subjects. And aspirin also works as an anticoagulant. It will increase the risk of bleeding in patients already with peptic ulcer. So aspirin, it's a double-edged sword. So it could help to control pain, like people have stomach pain or abdominal pain, but then aspirin will also inhibit factors with gastrointestinal protection effect. So aspirin actually it reduce the pain, reduce the inflammation, but then it will increase stomach ulcer and probably internal bleedings, and people already have peptic ulcers. So aspirin, if taken aspirin over time, like more than 5 years, it will reduce the risk of cancer of digestive tract, but then it increased internal bleeding. So you have to weigh the benefits and harms. So it's not like recommended for everyone. It's just like we have to evaluate our individual risk of cancer and internal bleeding. So for the nutrition management of peptic ulcer, nutrition management, we need to decrease consumption of alcohol, spices, especially as peppers. The spices do not cause peptic ulcer, but they can worsen the symptoms in coffee and caffeine. Increase the consumption of omega-3 and omega-6, these are the healthy fatty acids. So good nutrition is in general, good diet helps defend against H. pylori symptoms and complications. Let's say no smoking. So after H. pylori infection, the diet we take on a daily basis could have a positive or negative impact on the risk of stomach cancer. Like poor diet include like pickles, preserved food, smoked food, salt. So most of these are high salt foods. They could increase the risk of inflammation and carcinogenesis, so increase the risk of stomach cancer. But when we adopt a healthy diet, includes fresh fruits and vegetables, lots of spices and fermented foods, it would reduce the risk of stomach cancer. So now the food we injected moved down to small intestine. Small intestine is where most digestion and absorption take place. So that's the lumen of small intestine. You can see the lumen is lined with only one layer of the epithelial cells. They look like a column. So it's a simple columnar epithelial cells. That's single layer. So it's very fast in cycling. So it's renewed about 4 to 5 days. When it's renewed so fast, it could be damaged easily because it's only one layer, but it can also be healed very quickly when all the conditions are optimal. And then the surface of the small intestine lumen, there's like this circular folds, villi and microvilli. All these are to increase the internal surface for effective digestion and absorption. So this is the one layer, villi and microvilli. They're finger-like, so look like fingers, just covered with microvilli. A microvilli can produce enzymes that help with the complete digestion of food. The small intestine, the duodenum, that's the first part of small intestine that's connected to the stomach. The duodenum receives the acid chyme from stomach and a bile acid from gallbladder. Bile acid is produced in liver and stored in gallbladder. When it sends the fat in the chyme, then it will release the bile acid into duodenum. And pancreatic juice that's produced in pancreas. So there are lots of digestive enzymes. We usually call them pancreatic enzymes, and also bicarbonate to neutralize the acid. So bile acid, it helps emulsify the fat, and then like after the fat is emulsified, it will be digested by the lipase produced in pancreas. The absorption in the small intestine, that's for the water soluble, like monosaccharides from carbohydrate, amino acids from protein, water electrolytes, including other minerals and water soluble vitamins. These are absorbed into blood circulation through the blood capillaries. And fat soluble vitamins and fatty acids, they're absorbed into lymphatic system, the bacteria. So it's everything that's absorbed, so nutrients, medication, chemicals, and toxins from the small intestine and then enter into the blood circulation. And the lymphatic system eventually will go into bloodstream as well, and then distributed throughout the body. And here, this shows the epithelial layer. So like between the epithelial cells, there is tight junction. The tight junctions are to prevent invasion of pathogens and incomplete digested foods, especially incomplete digested proteins. Amino acids and monosaccharides, they use carriers, the specific carriers to go through the epithelial cells into the blood circulation. So this absorption is selective for the nutrients from water, they can just leak into according to the gradient. So this tight junction, the tight junctions, they work as immune gate. So that when the intestinal barrier, that's the mucosal barriers, are compromised, then the tight junction is exposed to the elements and could be damaged. When the tight junction is damaged, like pathogens and the food particles that's not completely digested can leak into the blood circulation and may trigger inflammatory immune responses that would result in many different types of chronic diseases. So like gut inflammation and impaired absorption and food sensitivity. When people experience multiple food sensitivity, they need to like get a clear diagnosis if there is compromised intestinal barrier or the tight junction. So pathogens and toxins may invade into a blood circulation, cause infection and immune responses, including autoimmune diseases. So that's the food protein that's incomplete digested, and that's that when it's completely digested, we have amino acids. The amino acids will go into our blood circulation. So lack of variety in our diet and poor digestion, like due to low stomach acid or insufficient pancreatic digestive enzymes, or it could be due to overgrowth of bacteria, lack of beneficial bacteria. So that's the inflammation, leaky gut. Yeah, when we have the damaged tight junction, sometimes we call it leaky gut. It just means like the pathogen can leak into a bloodstream. So then it would cause inflammation. So it's a vicious cycle. And food intolerance and allergies. And over time could cause immune dysregulation like autoimmune diseases. So the factors affecting mucous barrier include emulsifier that's found in most of the processed foods and fast food. Gluten also it's in most of the processed foods and fast foods. Alcohol, pathogens, bile acid. When we had like taken high fat food, the gallbladder will release lots of bile acids, and then the bile acid may not be able to recycle efficiently. So then there'll be bile acid in large intestine that will still cause irritation in large intestine, inflammation and stress. And some individuals may have the genetic variations, make them more susceptible to mucous barrier impairment. It could be the vitamin D receptor variation, not able to metabolize vitamin D efficiently. And gluten, gluten is the protein found in wheat. Gluten in the diet may increase the gut permeability. Let's just say, like when we have higher permeability in the gut, it means more undigested foods can leak into our bloodstream. So it's through a protein called zonulin. So this is a marker for a lot of its autoimmune diseases. So gluten is a protein primarily found in grains, especially in wheat, rye, and barley. And that's the protein in our like a staple food made out of flour. So most of the baked goods it contains gluten. The gluten is made out of two proteins, the gliadin, that's globular, and the linear glutenin. So we need to, when we make the flour foods, we need to do the kneading, that is to mix the two proteins with water. So then the food has this high elasticity. So the wheat, the protein, wheat mostly is starch, but the protein about 6%. 80% of protein is gluten, and it's 50-50 gliadin and glutenin. So for people with gluten sensitivity, the common symptoms are the abdominal pain and dermatitis, which is the inflammation of skin, and they also have headaches, foggy mind. So it affects our neurological system too. And it could have altered bowel habits, either diarrhea or constipation. And they may also experience this like a fatigue and depression. So to diagnose gluten sensitivity, first need to exclude celiac disease. So celiac disease is an autoimmune disease to gluten. And wheat allergy, also need to exclude wheat allergy. It's the allergic reaction to proteins other than gluten, just to other proteins in wheat. So to diagnose gluten sensitivity, first exclude celiac disease, then exclude wheat allergy. Then look at the symptoms. So they have the gastrointestinal symptoms, which we talked about in the previous slide. And the symptoms also include some neurological disorders like depression, headache. Then when people experience these symptoms, if they exclude or eliminate gluten from their diet, the symptoms will improve dramatically, almost quickly. And then when they reintroduce gluten, inject gluten after gluten elimination, then the symptoms will reappear or worsen. So that's how to diagnose with gluten sensitivity. And gluten is not only in wheat, rye, and barley, it can also be in oats. Oats usually it's a contamination in the field or in the manufacture, to contaminate with wheat. So oats may or may not have gluten, but it could be a source. And sauces we use soy sauce, salad dressing, drug fillers, processed meats, and this is a contamination. When we use the same food preparation surface or tools for the weeds, and some other everyday like lipstick, chopsticks, they can also have gluten. And these are the foods without gluten, like corn, rice, potato, quinoa. So gluten-free, it's becoming very popular, but for people without gluten sensitivity, going on gluten-free diet, it could cause more harm than benefits. The gluten-free diet usually is high in saturated fats, lipids, simple carbohydrates, sodium, sugar, and calories, and low in minerals like zinc, magnesium, iron, calcium, folate, and dietary fiber. But food adverse reactions have three major types. Food allergy, we're not going to go into details this class. This is an immediate IgE response to food. It could cause anaphylaxis, that's whole body reactions to food. It's not common, like people with food allergies to peanuts. And food sensitivity, it's a non-IgE mediated. It's typically mediated by IgG. It's an immune response, and it's common, like what we already talked about, like gluten sensitivity is a type of food sensitivity. And food intolerance, This is usually to carbohydrate, like related to carbohydrate digestion and absorption. And the symptoms are limited to gastrointestinal. It's non-immune related, it's very common. So that's the comparison of food sensitivity and food intolerance. So food sensitivity is a type of immune response, typically mediated by IgG or immune complex. So it's a reaction to incomplete digested food protein. And the symptoms can be like multiple symptoms, that various symptoms like gluten sensitivity, not just in the digestive tract, can also affect the neurological system. And it begins in childhood, and by elimination and rotation, the symptoms can be improved. But for food intolerance, it's non-immune related. It's usually it's lack of enzymes to digest the food or inefficient transporters for absorption of carbohydrate foods, mostly sugar. So it's limited to digestive system. And they can start at any age. It's very common. We just need to reduce the intake. No need to completely avoid the food. So like milk, some fruit and vegetables. So lactose intolerance, that's very common in Asian countries. So it could be due to genetic errors. This is a variation that will not be able to produce enough lactase to digest lactose in milk. And it could also be due to some late onset. And some of the carbohydrate intolerance, food intolerance, it's not genetic related. And it could be due to fructose malabsorption, just cannot absorb fructose efficiently. It could be impairment in this fermented carbohydrate food. So that's the milk, cow's milk composition. So for the whole milk, like 87.4% water, and then 12.6% of the milk solids. And in the milk solids, like 3.25% is milk fat. So when it's whole milk, milk fat is 3.25%. And sometimes processed to contain a 2%, 1% or non-fat by removing part of the milk fat. And then the other solids can include sugar in milk is lactose, and protein in milk is casein and whey. Whey is soluble, casein is insoluble, and also some minerals. So in one serving, it's 1 cup, about 250 ml, but they contain 12 grams of lactose, 8 grams of protein, 8 grams of fat, about 300 milligrams of calcium, and then there's no vitamin D, C, or iron, and fortified. I think all the milk are fortified with vitamin D, and some are fortified with vitamin A also. So lactose intolerance is lack of the lactase. Lactase digest lactose into 1 glucose and 1 galactose, and then the glucose and galactose will be absorbed into bloodstream. But for people with lactose intolerance, they don't have enough lactase to digest lactose, and then the undigested lactose go into large intestine. Bacteria ferment lactose and produce acids and gases that lead to diarrhea, flatulence, and abdominal pain. So the tolerance dose, the threshold dose for each individual is different. Usually, even for individuals with lactose intolerance, they can inject up to 12 grams of lactose per sitting each time. And for people with lactose intolerance, they can still consume products containing lactic acid, as in fermented. Lactic acid is fermented product from lactose. And that's whey protein and casein protein. So for people with lactose intolerance, that's very highly prevalent in Asians, about 90%. That I just can take lactose-free milk or soy milk. And there are also some lactose-free dairy for people with severe lactose intolerance. Hard cheese usually don't have lactose and can also supplement it with lactase. Probiotics and calcium also help to reduce the symptoms. So the recommendation is small amounts. You need to know how much you can take at each sitting, and no milk or milk products on empty stomach. The unabsorbed food, like if the food it's not digested or absorbed in small intestine, the unabsorbed food and food waste will pass into large intestine column. And large intestine absorbs some water, some electrolytes, some vitamins, and biosalts, the bile acid. So the main function of large intestine is to absorb water from the digestive waste so that it's concentrated to form feces. And then lots of bacteria live in large intestine. The bacteria digest the undigested food, use the undigested food as their food. Mostly it's carbohydrate, and I produce some vitamin, especially vitamin K2 and some vitamin B. The bacteria in the large intestine, the very high amount, and also help with our nutrient production and absorption. Now, constipation is the most common disorder in large intestine, especially for young, like young children and young adults. Yeah, older people also have the problem of constipation. But common causes that first you need to see if the water intake is enough. So drink more water, make sure have adequate dietary fiber in the diet. And it's a microbiota or microflora imbalance, like too many of that. We shouldn't call it bad bacteria, just like not enough amount of beneficial bacteria, and overgrowth of the other bacteria could also cause constipation. And for young adults, a lot of time it's the disruption of routine. And when people on traveling tend to have constipation issue, and then lack of physical activity. And two, like when people consume too much of milk or dairy products, it can also cause constipation or worsen constipation issue and stress. And that's the other possible causes, a lot of time related to health issues or medications like antacids and some of the iron pills, pain medicine can also cause to temporary constipation and pregnancy too. Now, how to like reduce the constipation? The natural approaches are that I drink more water to stay hydrated. That's the adequate intake, just average 3.7 liter about a gallon for male and 2.7 liter for females. And eat more fiber-rich foods, so lots of greens. And establish a routine, manage stress, stay active, increase physical activities, reduce the use of laxative antibiotics, antacids. It's antibiotics. It kills other bacteria. So could lead to imbalance of gut microbiota. And limit consumption of dairy products and gluten. For those people with constipation, they may want to avoid dairy products and gluten to see if it would get improved. And probiotics, fermented foods will help to restore gut microbiota balance. So that's the lifestyle, like modern lifestyle, have a negative impact on gut microbiota. So sometimes they call it microbiome. It is a microbiome that include fragments, the genes on the microbiota. Usually it's interchangeable, microbiome or microbiota. So like C-section, it's like newborns without the healthy inoculation of healthy bacteria from the mom. So C-section is a risk factor. Lack of breastfeeding. We now know breast milk contains lots of the beneficial ingredients for beneficial bacteria. And people live a lifestyle with high processed foods, the fast foods, restaurant foods, low in fermented foods, lack of dietary fiber. Fiber is found in plant-based diet, and overuse of antibiotics and antacids. Those all could have negative impact on our gut microbiota, and that would lead to inflammatory diseases. And how to restore digestive health. So if we look at our gut as the lung, so if it's a healthy lung, the grass just green and looking very vibrant. So, but when we take like overuse antibiotics, it just like kill all the grass, then it's bare. So when the lung is bare, then weeds can grow. That's just like the bad bacteria. So in order to restore our gut, we need to put in good seeds. That's the beneficial bacteria from probiotics, fermented foods, prebiotics. It's mostly in the plant-based diet, the dietary fiber. This is the bacterial therapy. This is what people with really severe digestive issues, they may consider it's a bacteria. It's the bacterial microbiota transplant. So then it would restore the ecosystem and our gut and restore the digestive health. So that's how to protect from weeds in our gut pathogens. So prepare the soil, the plant-based diet, rich in dietary fiber and beneficial microorganisms. It's not just the bacteria, also some of the fungi also could be beneficial. So the gut trains the immune system, the healthy gut trains the healthy immune system. So the development of immune system, it depends on healthy gut. So the gut trains the immune system. A healthy and balanced gut offers protection that reduces certain inflammatory conditions. Because most chronic diseases are chronic inflammatory conditions that related to immune system dysfunction. So healthy gut, healthy immune system, and then we will have a healthy life. So the good bacteria, the beneficial bacteria, it's the beneficial microorganisms by probiotics. So probiotics, antibiotics, let's just say this pro, this anti. And the beneficial microorganisms support healthy gastrointestinal tract or digestive tract, promote healthy digestion and absorption, improves lactose intolerance and relieve diarrhea and constipation, will help regulate microbiota balance and reduce harmful bacteria, increase beneficial microorganisms, and then increase nutrient availability, strengthen the immune system. So it has lots of health benefits. And for the dietary fiber, it has two types. It contains soluble fiber. That's the fiber will dissolve in water and become a gel-like, so can slow down digestion. So help us to have a stable blood sugar because it slows down the digestion and helps the absorption of nutrients, like complete digestion and absorption of nutrients from foods. And insoluble fiber, it's the fiber that's not soluble in water. It adds bulk and mass to the stool so that we can have a regular bowel movement. And it stimulates the GI tract, helps food passes quickly through the stomach intestines. So the both are beneficial. Soluble fibers mostly it's found in like the oats, nuts, beans, and fruit, the flesh of fruit. And insoluble fiber was in seeds, skins of fruit, whole grains, and vegetables. So we just no need to know which are soluble, which is insoluble. Just in general, we want to take a plant-based diet that's rich in whole grain products, and for those without gluten sensitivity issue, fruits with peels, vegetables of all variety, all colors, legumes, beans, and peas, so nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds are great snacks. So that's the plant-based diet, the healthy eating based on plant-derived foods. Plant-based, either rainbow, all colors, and good fats, low in saturated fats. So saturated fats is limited to 10%. We have a class on fats, so we will go in more details on good fats and saturated fats. And limit red meat. So when we adopt a healthy eating with a healthy plant-based diet, and with a good gut microbiota, this xenobiotics, it is the toxins, the chemicals in our environment, so we need to reduce that. So then all this support a healthy immune system for a healthy body. That's the last slide. Thank you.